Coming up in the next countdown LBL. Coming up next video title nextVideo.description. Skip to this video now. Transcript for live update on today's biggest stories. Welcome to ABC News Live. I'm Kenneth Mode reporting from New York, where we are following a number of big stories for you on this Thursday on the rundown. President Trump is making headlines from monologue addressing the Russian investigation. Whether or not there'll be more sanctions are out now, and it's standing by for a live report in Paris there of the major transportation strike. Mike if any by right there to tell you how with impact the international travel. And for the first time in fixed decades, we can tell you that the new leader in Cuba, not mean Castro, while a lot more from Cuba coming out. But first we begin with new information into the investigation to a deadly mid-air incident involving that crippled Southwest Airlines jet. Raw BC's senior transportation correspondent David Curley at the latest now from Philadelphia International Airport. And the FAA says it is now going to take action. It is going to order inspections of older heavily used 737s. Looking at that damn blades in those particular 737s. That's because this week's incident, but that emergency landing here in Philadelphia of a Southwest 737 with a death on board was not the first incident. There was a second one at 2016. Let's talk about what happened this week as we've learned some new details. That engine ripped apart at 30,000 feet. And as it did, the plane immediately took a hard bank to the left more than 40 degrees. The normal bank, a steep bank that you may have felt in an aircraft, will be 25 degrees. It was 22 minutes to get to the airport here in Philadelphia. And all the time on that flight the engine is vibrating that left into because it's kind of broken apart, especially the outer howling of it has shredded apart parts of it landing 60 miles away from here. So the crew decided as they were landing to keep control the aircraft. They wanted more speed, so they touched down at a 190 miles an hour, normally touchdown at a 125 miles an hour. Of course a lot of folks still giving praise the crew, the captain, the co-pilot for getting that aircraft down, as most everybody knows now. A window blew out over the exit row 14 of that aircraft to Jennifer Reardon was sucked partially out of that window, brought back in by a couple of passengers. We've learned that it was blunt force from that killed her, the mother of two from New Mexico. A little bit more now on these inspections. The FAA started to put together an order last year because of the 2016 incident with the Southwest aircraft. That had a very similar incident. Fan blade broke, so both of these cases the fan blade due to metal fatigue, where the fans latest connected to the center shaft, they broke off, so they're very similar incidents. Nobody knows, not the end or manufactured nor the regulators or investigators, exactly what's causing them to break, other than the fact that there's metal fatigue. So FAA was putting together this order last year. It wasn't finalized, but now with this second incident the FAA is saying in the next 2 weeks they will issue that order. As it stood last year, 220 engines would be covered by this order. As I said, heavily used older 737 engines in the flick fan blades inside. We don't know whether the order would decrease that or not, but think about this, there are more than 13,000 of those engines in service, so the order coming from the FAA in the next couple of weeks. Already airlines are doing enhanced screenings and inspections their engines, especially Southwest. Since this second incident, American Airlines says it started inspections last year as his order was being debated. So expect more from the FAA in the coming days. Tenet. Alright, our thanks to David Crew reporting from Philadelphia. Return on our President Trump, who is talking North Korea in the Russia investigation. ABC outs Malin is traveling with the president. He's lived there more long ago in Southport of the morning. Alex. My morning, early afternoon. Tenet. And yet the president has just wrapped up that 2-day summit with Japanese Prime Minister Enzo May. We saw the two of them holding it once as eating dinner and even playing a round of golf for the president's private golf club nearby Mar-a-Lago. But the biggest headline out of this 2-day summit was without a doubt North Korea. The president seems almost eager that sit-down that he's hoping to have with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. We saw that stunning news that broke on Monday evening that the CIA director and Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo made a claimed stunning trip to North Korea and met face-to-face with Kim Jong-un without any preconditions, and Injustice stressed that the idea that he met with and without any preconditions was a question that was pressed on the president in that press conference yesterday. Well, why would you have a senior U.S. official sit down with the leader of this dictatorship without requesting any preconditions or the release of 3 U.S. hostages? The president essentially previewed his own meeting and says that he plans to sit down with Kim Jong-un in that he's ready to walk away if he does not think that Kim is going to give up any kind of deliverables in terms of denuclearization. And he also vowed that he would press him on Japanese hostages that the year that the North Korean regime holds. And it, and I think this kind of another thing that the president was pressed on in that press conference was whether he would fire Robert Mueller and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. This is something that you can clearly tell frustrate the president, the fact that he still sits standing next to world leaders and getting pressed on the Russian investigation. That he has no plans to fire Mueller rodents, and right now he says they're still here, but behind closed doors we're seeing House Republicans pressuring Rod Rosenstein, threatening him with subpoenas, potentially holding him in contempt over the deal the Department of Justice failure to deliver documents through House Republicans spurred investigations into Hillary Clinton's emails, so something that's still pressuring the president as he meets with these real world leaders. Alex, we'll see what happens. It partly comes with special counsel and the Deputy Attorney General, and whether or not the president gets rid of them, so we'll see, and we'll stay on top of that. But as far as the president's travel on the not in the key for the first time, it's President right. Yet he is down there actually visiting the Joint Interagency Task Force South. Now this is a branch of the Southern Command, and what they're responsible for essentially is interdiction of drugs that might be coming into the U.S. Now this is obviously a big issue for the president. He's always talked about since his days backing of the campaign trail about drugs pouring into the U.S., and so we can expect to potentially hear some of that harsh immigration rhetoric from the president that we've heard on the campaign trail, and as recently as last week, 2 weeks ago, when he ordered the National Guard down to the southern border. And so we see him right now kind of warring with the California governor, who's shown some apprehension with supplying those National Guard troops. But he'll be down there meeting with this DHS Secretary Nielsen. Chief of Staff John Kelly will be joining him down there, so we can expect to see him receive a briefing on the drug interdiction efforts down there. Art Raw BC's Alex Malice, and on top of all things involving the president. Alec, thank you for that report. Overseas now, major strike in France, and terrorists to be exact. It's called me. Major protests. Then we want to now go get the latest. ABC's Mickey K, who has lied, and here is now Mikey. Good morning. I can't. Good morning records you from a day of very peaceful but a very loud launched, involving ups and that we just throwing birth of 40,000 protesters protesting, and the main about SNCF. Effectively that is the bridge and I ruled of the rail networks and problems on this sizzle, because all of my clones reform promise, economic reform promise that my president Michael Brown on last year, and will be made the 14th, the first anniversary of the president being in power, and is a huge loss. Today I'm programmed over the next 3 months because of my crone's policy of a blending of reforming the real networks. What he wants to do is he wants to take away the job security to jobs for life. If you like, he wants to basically we look at the pensions, the strong pensions, though it commonly been enjoyed by the SNCS civil servants, the well workers, and the students for a long time. He wants to look at your favorites on the plans, basically SNCF. It's about 50 billion euros in debts, and he wants to do something about it. It's something that they run on, and that's when he's salvaging election. And he's pushing ahead with the Americans like kind of it's really no popular area. My cat, that's your houses, right? Impact the international travel, yours in the US or and within Europe. While the political 40,000 people in the main it's whole delighted by this agency, which is the main union in the Bronx. The people are effectively puts us because of the essence, but on other areas all other organizations are piggybacking, if you like. That's doctors, students. There's Russell piggybacking on the street movement by the ocean, pushing kind of the international services from the road perspective. You've got the Eurostar 1 and March right thing by then you don't. Tyler's, which provides the connections to the Northeast in Brussels on legal detective Mike connections running down, and Italy an inch display, all of these international services being severely affected. The 2 days every week rolling over 3 months until June. If you incredible scene happening behind you there did show up a little bit about what you're seeing there on that street. What we've seen today has pretty much been anything quite peaceful kind of, but earlier on, about an hour ago, at all a smaller group of individuals that certain of these protests, but Rudy tools on autopilot, basically sewn up to fight with the police real. In the sense most want, in the sense I would like Pamela in one of those protests about Howard Young, critical point, massive levels on the flashes going off, but in the main, Most people ignoring not on the mosque being very peaceful and I don't old. Totals that don't quote Christoph until Claude the industry Zobel will stay was hopeful a little bit and it's of the particular. Immediate some spending, that meetings, and got them look, 7 victory exit and implement. Right so basically what's on foot is saying it is theirs that seem to represent the essence death. But also energy is one of the big gas and electricity supplies inside Bronson don't go door here because why? And that it's related to connect us. But for a RIP facility. Critics noticed it. It's basically his uncle's watching today because he's trying to keep the public service. What Michael saying basically is to rein in all of this expenditure Oracle's strategy of course since the F. And what is on there is torn Michael destroyed to make it more competitive. And then he saw an open out to Tango. Taking away from the public sector both the private sector and this obviously is annoying a lot of union workers like Let's Total. Thank you very much of a crystal. I would have a peaceful that Kenneth. Alright thank you Mike you for that incredible boarding and cares, we appreciate it. It's a big day in Cuba, there's a new leader not named Castro we go now live to Cuba to our ABC affiliate to report every PLGs. Calvin Hughes Calvin, you have the latest on the man who just replaced by the pro-Castro. Well 10 no surprise here no political drama the political script played out exactly like the authors wrote it years ago. The authors being the Cuban Communist Party and former president now Raul Castro and speaking of Castro. He took the podium just moments ago let's check in now at the National Assembly where he was speaking perhaps giving its final speech as president of Cuba. He broke yesterday, saying that he wants to go the canal to be the Secretary General of the Communist Party. A position that is many say more powerful than the presidency. Castro now holds that position until 2021. 3 years from now Castro talked about this being the anniversary of the VIA. Of course that happened 57 years ago the failed military invasion of Cuba by the US under the presidency. John F. Kennedy. Let's take you now to what happened earlier today. This happened in real time live on state-run television just before 9:30 today. That big announcement the National Assembly vote was ratified. Raul Castro entered the room with much applause for more than 600 assembly members. They stood cheering for the now-retired revolutionary, who chose the blues through today over his military uniform. In that announcement, Cuba's new president Miguel Diaz-Canel he embraced Castro after walking out. Castro handpicked him years ago and National Assembly members laughing and applauding for him today and like a conductor Castro racist and of course, in celebration yes that now is the train engineer, who is loyal fiercely loyal and today he cashed in on that loyalty and his first speech as president. The Escudel praised the communist country one-party political system and quickly paid respect to Castro and Kendall last of the living revolutionaries we are going to be watching. His ever red blue. Now my question where it at this new presidency meeting about fixing Cuba's economy. Where Cuba's economy is it limping along here? It has only been growing now for about 2% over the last several years here and that simply won't cut it. And the saying here is so goes that is Layla. So goes Cuba's economy and so this country is really hurting but the canal but not talk about that he simply talked about what he wants to do as president and that is making sure that the revolution continues in his words and he says communism continues. If you paid homage to those sitting in the audience, count on him interest that what's the reaction from the Cuban people Molly Bear in Cuba but with Miami having the largest Cuban American population. What are you hearing from about there and their reaction as well? Well back across the Florida Straits it's pretty much the same here as I've spoken well of so many people here on the island nation as well and that is they are expecting more of the same. A new leader but perhaps not new hope in terms of things changing and we heard that today from the Cuban president who simply says, capitalism will not be accepted here would not be welcome here communism in his words of the new president to go the canal it will continue. Alright our thanks to Calvin Hughes from our Miami ABC affiliate WPLT Calvin thank you so much for your reporting and keep tabs on that story all the source recover for you today. But abcnews.com and ABC News app. I'm gonna vote reporting for ABC News Life. This transcript has been automatically generated and may not be 100% accurate.